What's up guys, and welcome back to Tech Plan. Today's a big update on those imports that I did that really long unboxing about. Let's check on them and see how they're doing.
Alright, just to forewarn you guys, for this voiceover I am really sick, so I might sound a little weird, but I gotta keep that upload schedule going if I want to make this channel come back to life. So let's just continue on. So some of you probably watched my big Ecuagenera unboxing, and it was a pretty long video. A lot of people actually liked it, so I will do more like that. But I wanted to show you what is the aftermath of these Ecuagenera imports, how I keep them, and just how long it takes for them to acclimate. So the first thing I want to do is show you where I actually keep these plants, and that is going to be in a bin. Like I said in my earlier video, I was going on vacation right after unboxing everything, so this is also a really good way to keep plants if you're going on vacation, because it'll sustain them and just keep them going for a really long time without waterings. Now the goal of this bin is to keep almost 100% humidity, or at least really high humidity. And then I did put a grow light on top, because in my opinion, if you're not giving plants light, they don't have the energy to like keep on living. So as soon as you get an import, I like to get light on them right away. This footage was filmed about 15 days, maybe a few days longer after the initial unboxing and repotting. So about 15 to 20 days went by, and so we're going to check on them and just see how they're doing. Just from the outward look of these things in the bin, they're all looking pretty lively. That one that was already pretty much toast upon unboxing is looking pretty bad. I still see a little green growth on there, so maybe it'll pull through, but I am not sure. I am going to leave all these in the bin for a longer period of time, but probably just crack the lid to lower the humidity a little bit. That way they can start to get used to a slightly lower humidity. Now, there were two plants that I could not fit in the bin, and I just put them right on the shelf. So again, they've been sitting here for 15 days. The first one is like the Querulamies. I can't pronounce it, you know this. But this one did lose a leaf, and the other leaf is not looking so hot. Again, this just got to fend for itself for 15 days out in just the standard humidity of my room, which is about 60%, and it's still doing okay. I expected a lot worse. Here's a cool Tycon that I picked up I'm pretty excited about, but let's move on to the next plant. So the next one is that Silver Magnificum that I unboxed, and that one again did not fit in the bin as well, so I just put it up on the shelf to see what would happen, and it's actually looking surprisingly well. The first Magnificum that I've ever imported from Ecuagenera was toast in like 14 days, and we're beyond 15-16 days here, and we only lost one baby leaf. So things are doing really well in my opinion, but only time will really tell. Let's take a closer look at these though in some better lighting. We'll go through every single one and just see where their status is. I do have even more footage later on that is like almost another 25 days later, so we can really see what happened over the course of about a month and a half. So the first one we're going to look at is that Querulamies. You can see the tag. Again, we saw that the one leaf was pretty much toast, but it might still pull through. I do know that the growth on there is still looking okay, so I'm not super concerned. Usually the first thing that happens to plants when they're super stressed is they start dropping leaves and they kill off any new growth. So the fact that it hasn't killed off the new growth totally yet gives me a little bit of hope that it might pull through. And remember, that one was not in a humidity bin at all. It just I just stuck it right out in the regular room with open air and about 60% humidity. Same with this next one that we're looking at, that is that Magnificum Silver. This one is doing pretty decent. We only lost one leaf so far, and it was one of the younger ones, so I'm not too worried. Again, the growth point looks okay, so this is another one of those only time will tell. But as I tug on it and stuff, it doesn't feel like the roots have rotted off or anything, so I think it's going to pull through. This one is the Anthurium antiquinis. Again, just look at the tag if you want to actually look this up. This one was doing horribly on unboxing. Like I said, I think this died long before it even made it in the mail. It looks pretty dang terrible now, but there is a little bit of green. However, I don't think this one's going to fare pretty well. But that's okay. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you lose. This one is Anthurium Friticali. You guys can look at the tag or look at the previous video. Again, I'm so sick right now. Going into the plant room already seems daunting. So this one is looking pretty decent. I was actually really worried about this one because it felt very dry when I unboxed it. Like the leaves were very thirsty. They're very limp and thin, but this one thickened up quite a bit. There is some new growth. I think this one is really going to be successful, and this one I was actually a little worried about, but I'm not worried anymore. I can almost guarantee a full recovery. This one is Anthurium debilitatum, something close like that. It's on the tag. You should be able to make it out in the video. The quality is pretty good. This one is a tank. I knew this was going to be just fine. When I unboxed this one, it felt incredible. It had all the thickness it needed in the leaves. It even had a flower. The roots looked excellent, and it was just awesome. So I knew this was going to pull through. This one's doing perfect. It has new growth and everything, and I have no worries about this one. I am super confident that this one will survive. This one is Anthurium coriaceum. I was a little nervous about this one because it had some dead leaves on arrival. Some were yellowing. However, it seems to be holding out. We're on, like I said, day 15, day 16, and I haven't seen too much of an incredible change, meaning it's not dying actively, and it's kind of holding off on its own. So I think this one is also going to make it. There is some new growth on here that is still coming in and has not died off, so it might lose some of the older leaves, but overall I think this one is also going to pull through just fine, which is good because I really like this unique style of this one with the really long petal and then the really cool leaf. So it should survive. Next up is that Anthurium reflexinarium. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation, but this one looks like nothing has changed. It seems like a really hardy Anthurium, honestly. Looking at the base, it's pretty hard to see if there is new growth. I think I can feel it, and I think that is new growth. But again, this one's growth style is very different, and it's like really down in there, and I don't want to poke around too much and ruin it, but it's looking pretty healthy. Next up is all of our Forgetii. These are looking pretty darn good in my opinion. I expected these to die off a little bit. Usually these anthuriums, these velvet anthuriums like that magnificum we saw earlier, haven't traditionally done well in my care, but I think I've learned quite a bit on how to pot them up right and just get them going. So they're all doing really good. I don't see any death on any of these. The leaves are all doing pretty good, no rotting really, and they all have new growth points that are starting. So I think it'll be just fine, but again, we'll find out in another 15-20 days. This next one is Anthurium luxurians. This is probably my favorite one, the one I was most excited about, and the one that I really want to survive. And that new leaf that was starting to harden off looks like it has continued to harden off, and it's not abandoning this new leaf, so that is a good sign. Things seem to be holding in the pot pretty well, and there is some new growth starting, so I believe this one is also going to be just fine and continue on. So I'm really excited because this one's going to have some sweet genetics to add to other hybrids. Alright, now that brings us to pretty much present day. This was filmed on the 13th of January, and I think the initial unboxing was somewhere around December 8th, December 10th, so more than a month for sure has gone by. I did put these back in the bin from the previous footage you just saw, but I cracked the lid so that way some regular air could get in there and I can get it used to less humidity. And so we'll check on them now and see how they're doing. We are going to start with the Anthurium that was doing really poorly from the very get-go, and you can see it is continuing to do very poorly. There is absolutely zero green on this thing, and it is just a stump. So we're going to rip it out, and maybe we can save it later. I'm going to try cutting it up, and maybe that'll be a whole new video, but this one definitely is not doing so good. But I expected that. It was practically dead on unboxing. So let's move on. Next up is that one really hardy small Anthurium that we saw earlier. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name, I'm sorry, but you should be able to see it on the tag. But this one is doing fantastic. After over a month of being alive in my setup, it doesn't even seem to budge at all. It's doing great. The new growth is getting bigger. It feels very hardy, and nothing seems to be dying off on this one, not even the flowers. So this one is making a totally full recovery, and it's even got some new root growth, which is always a good sign because that means it has recovered and it is starting to actively grow. So this one is doing great. Next up is one of our Forgetii white stripes. This was the bigger one. Some sort of interesting news. Obviously there's nothing dying on here, so that's great, but if you remember earlier, there was the one new growth that sort of rotted off in the very beginning when I unboxed it, but luckily it seems to have started a secondary growth, if that makes any sense. So now we actually have 2 active growth points on this one, so it's almost a gift that it was in a little bit of a worse shape when I unboxed it, because now we're going to get 2 new leaves per time that it produces new leaves, and it's going to keep growing really nice and healthy. I think this one is totally going to pull through. There's been no yellowing, and we have 2 new growth points, so this one is doing fantastic as well. Next up is the Luxurians. This one's easy to pronounce, which is why I'm pronouncing it. Again, this is the one I really loved and really wanted to pull through, and it is totally pulled through. The new growth is hardened off just fine, although there is a little hole and tear in there, but big deal, it's alive, and that's what really matters. And the new growth is really starting to thicken up and really sort of protrude, so we're definitely seeing it's going to survive. I don't see any active root growth near the top, so I'm going to mound the soil a little bit. Hopefully we'll get some new roots, but the other roots feel pretty good, and when I tug on it, it doesn't feel like it's loose. So I think everything is going well with this plant. Next up is that Silver Magnificum. This one still is doing pretty good. This has been out of the humidity box since the very get-go, so it's been out for 30-something days. and it's doing pretty darn good. I really did not expect this one to make it just because of how much of a shock it must have been in from just coming out of the box and just going right into my setup. But it seems to be doing okay. There is new growth that is continuing to grow. However, it's a little slow, but I think this one will pull through. It has not killed off any more leaves since the initial kill off that we saw earlier, and the new growth is continuing to get bigger. So I think this one is definitely going to pull through, and it's going to be a survivor. Next up is the smaller Forgetii white stripes. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is starting to get quite hoarse in this. The sick confusion's also getting me. Anyways, this one is starting to do its thing. There's some new growth starting at the base, so I believe it's totally going to pull through. I am really excited about this one. I'm glad this one specifically is pulling through because this seemed to have the best pattern of that white stripe. It's super thick and I want those genes, so I hope this one continues to do well. The new growth means it probably will be, so I'm happy. This was one of the more larger anthuriums that we imported. It did look a little funny in the very beginning with some of the yellow leaves, and we're still seeing that, which is interesting that they haven't actually died off yet. So it seems like the yellowing has slowed down significantly, and we're at a point of just growth at this point. I don't think it's going to kill anything more off, and the ones that are half dead will probably take a while to fall off. I am seeing a lot of new growth at the base, so I'm not worried about this one at all. This one totally has recovered, and it is used to the environment, and I think this one is going to be just fine. It might be hard for you to see at the very base, but there is a big thick root, so again, I love to see when there's roots and new growth, because if you see new roots, you really got a plant that's kind of bounced back. It's putting out new growth in both directions, and it will be a happy camper. So this is a great sign. Here's the anthurium fraticali, something like that. This had those really thin leaves I was a little nervous about, but it has really bounced back well. I've kept this one a little wetter than I probably should have, but it seems to actually like that. There's a lot of new growth on this one, and there's a lot of new root growth. So again, it's growing in both directions. I'm really happy, and I think it's going to be just fine. One of the leaves did look a little weird, but all the newer stuff looks just fine, so I'm not too concerned. And again, I think this one is also going to be just fine. Here is the anthurium reflexionarium, something like that. This one doesn't look like it's changed at all. I mean, it's been about a month and a few days, and it just looks the same. I mean, this one is really hardy. It doesn't change. Even if it's been shocked, you can't tell. But I believe the growth point is growing. It's tough to tell because it's pretty short and it's down in there, and I don't want to snap it off digging around, but there's a lot of roots like right around the growth point as well. So I think this one has made a full recovery and is, like I said, growing in both directions, and it looks great. So this one is totally going to survive as well. And then last up, we have that Quaramolese anthurium. This is the one that was out in just regular humidity. I never put it in the bin, so this is one I didn't really expect to do very well, and it's not. I mean, honestly, it's looking a little ill still. The leaf is still not dead yet, but the growth point is, I'm not really sure about this one. So if anything might perish at this point, definitely going to be this one, but we'll have to just wait and see. I kind of do like the live or die method, so if it makes it, it makes it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't want to baby things too much because it's just too time consuming, but yeah, overall it's doing okay.
Well guys, that pretty much sums up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and this gave you a sneak peek into the realities of importing plants between the unboxing and the repotting. And in this video here with the whole update, you can really see what to expect when you import plants from overseas. There is some die-off, there is some issues. It's never going to be perfect, but usually most things pull through. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.